Hello there guys, Tyranzo here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're watching this on New Year's time or New Year's Eve, then hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope you had happy holidays in general. So today I'd like to do a different video to avoid sounding like a broken record talking about AI all the time. Let's talk about, just 5 simple tips that can improve your sketching skills. I'm a self-taught artist myself, and these are just things that have really helped me improve my art a lot that I hope you might find useful as well. So let's just dive right in, shall we? So here's a nice little artwork of Magna Dramon, or Holy Dramon from Digimon. It's one of my favorite artworks. Let's just show you a quick time-lapse replay, and then we can get into the very first handy tip, which is not to be afraid to be messy. So I think one of the problems that a lot of people have when they start drawing and sketching is that they're afraid of, they're so focused on trying to get everything right the first time. And that's really not something, you really shouldn't focus on trying to get all the details right until much later. What you should do first is, just draw, whatever ideas you have. Sketch ideas, not the details at first. Don't be afraid of drawing a whole bunch of really messy lines. Just draw whatever ideas that just come to your mind, and you can always fix it later, and you can always add the details later. And so once you start doing that, you'll find that your drawing will be much smoother and much more, how do we put it? You'll feel a lot more free. You don't feel like you have to get everything right. I know, you know, even myself, I have a level of OCD and perfectionism. And what you find is as you keep trying to focus on the details, you'll waste a lot of time trying to fix things that eventually you're not going to use because you're just going to undo or erase anyway. So just focus on trying to sketch, and don't be afraid of being messy. You can always fix that later. And that's the first handy tip that I can give you, which is just don't be afraid to be messy. The second bit that I think is very important is always use references. Now, this is a very obvious thing. Almost everyone says use references. But for some reason, people still forget to use references. Now, no matter what your skill level, you'll find that references are very useful. And so I sometimes like to just plop it right on my canvas so I can just see it directly and not have to move my head around to a different screen trying to figure out where Jigglypuff or Feraligatr is. So if you can, just plop it there. If not, if you have a second monitor, that's also good. Just always use references. It's so obvious, and it just helps you to remember to be able to compare and make sure you got all the details right, because human memory is truly very bad. And unless you have photographic memory, which most mortals like us do not, like myself. So if you're not one of those people, then you probably are going to need a reference. Or unless you drew that character so much that you have its entire detailed anatomy burnt right into your brain, then of course feel free to not use a reference then. But in general, use references. That's number 2. Number 3 is to always to use shapes and forms. Now, as you can see right here, as I'm sketching all this very messy sketches of Jigglypuff and Feraligatr, I'm mostly focusing on drawing the forms of the characters. So I just drew lines, I drew circles, and just try to focus on the shapes. Again, this goes back to point 1. Don't be afraid of being messy. Just focus on the shapes and the forms of the characters. So Feraligatr, that's the big blue crocodile, alligator rather. He has a circle for a head. and nice, I guess you can say banana shaped for the rest of the body because it's curled up and sleeping. And then Inteleon, that's if you don't know that Pokemon, that's the one on the very right. It's a long snake thing. So I drew a nice long snake-like body with arms and legs. And so figuring out what the details of those, what the shapes of those characters are, that will help you pose those characters. So let's just dive in a very quick example. So if I just want to draw a dragon, for example, I'm not going to draw all the details immediately. What I would do is maybe I'll just draw a circle for the head, and I'll just draw like a snake-like body or something, and I would just add the arms, and then I'll add the legs, and so and then you can just fill in the details later. You can just add the snout and then the horns and do something like that, and you basically have a shape of a dragon. And so by thinking in shapes and forms, it'll give you much more creativity, much better ability to expand your creativity and be able to pose things in different ways, and experiment a little more rather than focusing so much on the small little fine details. Yes. So that's that. Focusing on the shapes. That will really help you a lot. That's number 4. And next off, what we have is changing your perspective. Yes, this is a very important bit that I think people seem to forget. So I've actually made a neat, funny little comic here. So here I'm trying to sketch a picture of awesome guy. He's a human with human-shaped proportions. Then I pick up the paper and go, oh, I have been able to draw awesome guy in the right proportions. Then I'm shocked because when I picked up and look at it perpendicular to the piece of paper, I figured out that, oh no, this head is too big and the arms are too big and the legs are too tiny. So that's a problem. And so it's very important that when you draw, if possible, try to, if you have some kind of desk raiser or something to lift your canvas up, and most artists do, lift it up and make sure it's perpendicular to your eyeballs so that you can see it correctly and so you can get all the proportions right. If not, make sure to always pick up the paper or pick up the canvas and take a step back and look at it and make sure everything's all right. And of course, if you're using Procreate or any other art software, they usually have a flip horizontal. So flip it horizontal and make sure that all the proportions of the head are right, for example. So make sure the eyeballs are fine, all that. So make sure that's fine, and then through that. And so when you flip it back, it should look the same. So that's very important. Now, finally, my 5th and final tip is to warp, transform, and liquefy. So if you're doing a lot of sketching, chances are sometimes you won't get all the proportions exactly right, and there are different ways you can try and fix things. You can of course try and erase it or undo it and then try and draw it again, but that would take a lot of time sometimes, and we don't really want to do that all the time. So one way you can make that quicker and easier is to use the handy little tool called Liquefy. So Liquefy is one of my favorite tools a lot. It allows you to push the artwork around, as you can see, to fix things. So say, for example, if I drew I draw intentionally this bad circle, for example. So I drew this circle intentionally quite bad, and maybe I don't know if that's going to work, but let's just do it for a quick example. And so his head it looks caved in a bit. So rather than fixing it by drawing it over again, what I can do is I can go to Liquefy, and then I can just push it out, as you can see. And now I fixed his head, and then you can do that again and make it a nice smile. And so you'll find that this is a very useful tool for your sketching, uh, as it allows you to change the shape of your artwork without necessarily erasing or deleting and redrawing it again. And there's a lot of other things you can do as well. Don't forget, you can also do things like transform. Say, for example, his head is too big, or maybe the dragon's head is too big. So you can make it smaller, transform it, make it smaller, and attach it. Or maybe that's actually way too small. So what I can do is just select this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform, and I can distort it, change this perspective, or I can just warp it. And again, all of these are just different tools that you can use to change your sketch without having to draw it again. And this is mostly digital only, so it's not going to work if you're a traditional artist. But if you are someone using, if you're a digital artist and you're drawing on Procreate or any other digital software, take advantage of all these tools, and it will really help your ability sketch and fix your artwork. So that's the 5 tools I have, 5 handy tips I have for improving your ability to sketch. And I hope you find it useful. If you like this video, then please thumbs up, like, subscribe. And as usual, Happy New Year, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.